The drugs weren't mine. I didn't even open the mailbox, but someone had my fingerprints, a matching key, and a camera angle that made it look like I did. The first knock was polite, the second less so. By the time the third landed, sharp, rhythmic, too confident, I already knew it wasn't a neighbor asking for sugar. Through the peephole, two men in dark jackets waited with impatient eyes. One clutched a clipboard, the other a small black device that looked suspiciously like a mobile scanner. My heart began to thud, slow but deep, like someone had dropped a stone in a well. "Miss Evans?" "Yes?" "May we come in for a moment?" Their badges flashed too fast to catch the full titles, but the words task force and evidence review burned into my vision like the afterimage of a flashbulb. I stepped aside. They didn't bother with pleasantries. "Are you aware of any suspicious activity in Mailbox Cluster C, Unit 7B? "That's not my box." "Correct," said Clipboard, "but you were seen accessing it." "I wasn't." The short silence after that statement felt engineered, like a test, and I failed it, because instead of waiting for a follow-up, I rushed to explain. "I check mail for Mrs. Lundy sometimes. She's 82, lives across from 7B. Maybe someone saw me helping her." "No mention of that from your neighbor. She claims you avoid her." That hit like a slap. I didn't avoid Mrs. Lundy. I respected her space after she yelled at me for overwatering her plants one summer. But the implication that I was being turned into a character in someone else's story chilled me. I asked what this was about. That's when they said the words. "There was a narcotics find, packaging, fingerprints. We have access log data showing your code was used at 1412 yesterday to open evidence locker number 4. I laughed. That's what you do when reality jumps the tracks. "There must be a mistake. I haven't been in the station. I've never even seen locker 4. Clipboard guy remained expressionless. The digital entry log doesn't make mistakes. Every word that followed felt like the walls closing in. Access log, evidence chain, possession intent, false narcotics find. I asked to call someone. They didn't stop me. But who was I supposed to call when I hadn't done anything? My parents were 5 states away. I wasn't seeing anyone. I worked freelance, lived quiet, boring even. I had no enemies, unless you count silence and systems. Because when I mentioned that I once helped a friend file a complaint about a suspicious evidence entry, something shifted, ever so slightly. "You said your name was," one of them asked again. "Evans, Lara Evans." Pause. "Hold on," Clipboard murmured, turning toward the hallway. The one with the scanner lingered. "You know, Miss Evans, it would be easier if you just told us the truth. We don't want this to escalate." I didn't answer, not because I was guilty, but because I was suddenly aware that every word I said might be sliced, rearranged, and fed back to me as a weapon. They left without arresting me, but not before handing over a formal summons. Interview with internal security, 9 a.m. sharp. And as the door clicked shut behind them, I noticed something taped to the inside of my peephole. A sticky note, pale yellow, almost invisible unless you looked close. One word, all caps, written in pencil. Run. What if the person who left that note knew exactly what was coming? I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the living room floor, the hard parquet pressing into my back, counting every red digital blink of the microwave clock like a countdown to detonation. 9 a.m., internal security. The phrase sounded like something from a movie where people disappear after asking too many questions. And apparently, I'd asked just one. I showed up early, not because I was eager, but because I wanted to walk through the parking lot twice and check every car twice over. Some were unmarked. One had tinted windows too dark for regulation. Another had its front plate removed. The security guard at the lobby gave me a bland smile, like he hadn't scanned my name off a list of flagged civilians. "Evans, Lara, appointment with internal," I said. "Room 402, take the second elevator. They'll buzz you in." Fourth floor, cold lighting, a fake fern dying in a chipped ceramic pot, and a sign on the wall that read, "This department handles all confidential matters with integrity." Sure, they buzzed me in. The woman behind the desk didn't give her name. She asked for mine and my phone. Then she passed me a clipboard. "Sign here. Interview consent and rights acknowledgement." The contract was dense, full of capital letters. One phrase jumped out like a slap. "Subject may not discuss interview content with unauthorized persons under risk of legal penalty." "Is this standard?" I asked. She didn't answer, just nodded toward the door that blinked red. A moment later, it turned green. Inside, the room was empty. One chair, one camera, one glass of water, no officer, no lawyer, just me, a blinking lens, and a manila folder with my name on it, already open. And then the voice spoke from the intercom. "Miss Evans, we're reviewing the digital entry log from evidence locker number 4. We've matched the 1412 timestamp to your apartment access code being used in our back-end systems." I leaned forward. "I don't have access to your systems. How would my code show up in your back-end?" "Your previous employment, municipal IT subcontractor, granted you temporary limited credentials in 2021. Those credentials were not formally revoked." That was true. I'd worked a 3-month contract restoring corrupted metadata from cloud archives after a cyber breach. Nothing sensitive, I thought. "Then your systems are broken. I haven't logged into anything in 2 years." Another pause. "Can you confirm that you didn't access locker number 4 on Tuesday afternoon?" "Yes." "And can you explain why your fingerprint was found on the lock pad?" My chest tightened. "That's impossible. I've never touched that door." He let the silence stretch. "Miss Evans, we are pursuing this case under internal security protocols. This is not a standard review. You've been connected to a manipulated evidence chain. Several links show unusual edits, all time-stamped within a window of 13 minutes, between 1412 and 1425. 13 minutes, enough to walk in, open a locker, plant something, and walk out, if you knew exactly where the blind spots were." Then he said something that changed everything. "Do you know a Charles Mendez?" I froze. I hadn't heard that name in months. Charles was a tech auditor who filed an ethics report 2 years ago on breached chain of custody protocols in digital logging systems. I helped him recover the file archive after it mysteriously corrupted. He disappeared a month later. "Is he okay?" The voice didn't answer. It just buzzed the door open. "You're free to go, Miss Evans, but I suggest you remain available." Outside, the receptionist was gone. The desk was dark, so I walked, fast, out of the building, past the fake fern, through the glass doors that reflected a warped version of my own face. When I got home, the sticky note on my peephole was gone. But there was another one on my laptop screen. This one said, "Check the photo you took last Wednesday. Zoom in." And I remembered. I had taken a photo of the sunset through my window, the sunset, and the black van parked behind mailbox cluster C. What I found in that photo made my blood freeze. But if I told anyone now, would they believe me? If you've ever felt like the system was watching you, you'll want to see what she finds next. Subscribe, and don't read the next chapter in the dark. Trust no one. Follow for the truth. The photo sat in my phone gallery, innocent at first glance. Orange gold streaks melting into navy clouds, framed by the edge of my window and the silhouette of mailbox cluster C. I'd snapped it last Wednesday, moments before stepping out to grab groceries. At the time, I hadn't noticed the van, but now I was zooming in with surgical focus. There it was, matte black, no plates, idling a few feet behind the cluster. But that wasn't what stopped my breath. It was the figure in the driver's seat, a silhouette with a very specific headset, thin mic arched toward the mouth, wire curling into a shoulder strap. Standard issue for internal security observers. And next to him, on the dashboard, was something even worse, a plastic envelope, marked, Evidence, Locker 4. My fingers trembled. That photo had a timestamp, Wednesday, 1847, almost exactly 18 hours before my alleged access at 1412 the next day. They had the packet before I ever touched the locker, before my fingerprints, before the report, which meant either the whole timeline was fabricated or someone was planting evidence days ahead, baking the lie into the system like a cake set to rise. I dropped my phone, then immediately picked it back up. My phone wasn't safe, not anymore. If they could manipulate digital entry logs, they could clone my device, trace my steps, piggyback on my GPS. I grabbed the cracked Nokia I kept in my drawer, ancient, unsmart, and blessedly off-grid, and left the apartment. Outside, the sky was ash-colored. The wind bit through my coat. I walked 3 blocks, turned left into a cafe I hadn't been in since college, and sat in the darkest corner. There, I pulled out the backup drive I'd always kept on me, paranoid habit from working IT, and I started digging. I still had access to old contract logs, archived server directories from my time in the municipal system. Most were blanked, but one file remained, oddly labeled, JMN Protocol JAS v3 dormant.log. Dormant, not deleted. Someone had forgotten, or wanted it found. Inside were references to several cases flagged Q internal, meaning they were removed from standard oversight. I knew what that meant. No public record, no audit trail, no paper. The dates were damning. July 14th, chain of custody breach flagged in Precinct 06. July 16th, evidence reassigned via off-log script. July 17th, external witness ID suppressed. July 21st, witness declared uncredible, neighbor interference. August 3rd, subject, Charles Mendez, status, inactive. August 5th, incident archived under internal security protocol. Then a new entry, dated 2 weeks ago. Sept 28, reactivation trigger, Evans, L. Flag, access log match at 1412. Status, unstable variable, preemptive discredit initiated. The breath left my lungs. I wasn't a suspect. I was a variable, a loose thread someone decided to snip before it unraveled the rest. My coffee had gone cold. I hadn't touched it. I looked up, and through the cafe window, across the street, was a man pretending not to watch me, reading a newspaper in 2025. Real subtle. I pocketed the drive, left cash on the table, and walked out the back exit into the alley. I didn't run. Running gets you followed. I walked like I had somewhere to be, like I was part of the city, like I wasn't unraveling on the inside. By the time I reached the underpass 3 blocks over, I'd already made my decision. I wasn't going to internal. I wasn't going to HR. I wasn't calling the cops. I was going to the one person Charles Mendez trusted when he filed his first report. Her name was Elise Tao. She was an ex-analyst, and the last time she spoke publicly, she said this: "If you see access logs shifting without human confirmation, get out or dig deeper. Just never stay still." And I was done standing still. I found Elise Tao listed in a quiet corner of the internet, a conference archive from 3 years ago, before her sudden leave of absence. The video was short, her voice calm, but her words haunted me. They won't come through your front door. They'll rewrite your history, and when you beg for someone to check the logs, they'll show you your own fingerprints. I stared at her face, paused mid-frame, wondering if she knew someone like me would be looking for her someday. It took 4 burner accounts and a favor from an old college friend to trace her current alias. ET29, a private cryptography consultant, hiding in plain sight on a secure message board for data whistleblowers. She hadn't posted in months, so I posted. I have a 1412 locker access log that doesn't match my physical location. Timestamp predates evidence movement. Protocol file JMN v3 still active. Need confirmation. LE. I didn't expect a reply. But 15 minutes later, a DM lit up. Meet me at the digital archives, Terminal 6, after dark. Bring the drive. Don't bring your phone. The digital archives were on the edge of the old district, an old city records building converted into a semi-public data access lab, the kind of place where systems die and secrets rot. I got there at 8:03 p.m. Terminal 6 was dead center in a row of half-lit stations, its screen black until I sat down. Then it flickered to life. A cursor blinked, then text appeared. Prove it's you. Upload the drive. I plugged it in. The screen split into 2 windows, one for the log I had found, and another, hers. And that's when the pieces started to connect. Charles Mendez's disappearance wasn't about a single chain of custody breach. It was part of a wider pattern Elise had been tracking. Digital realignment incidents. Cases where the access logs were subtly rewritten post-event to frame civilians in internal investigations. Most of them started the same way. Low-profile person. Minor conflict with law enforcement. Digital trail twisted after the fact. What shocked me most was how many of them involved people labeled neighbor interference, just like me. This is systemic, Elise typed. Internal uses these false narcotics finds to silence outliers. The locker access logs are the decoy. The real trick is upstream, at the credential sync level. What can I do? I typed. A pause, then, you can walk away, erase the drive, stay safe. I stared at those words, feeling the sting of betrayal. Or, I typed, another pause, or we break their chain from the inside. The screen blinked. A new file downloaded to my drive. Trigger loop pa override.pkg. It was a tool, a key, something Charles had started and Elise had finished. It could trace the fake access log back to the administrator override that wrote it. Not just prove I didn't access locker number 4, but expose who did. But using it came at a cost, because the moment I launched it, they'd know. They'd see the activity spike. They'd track the terminal. They'd come. I sat there, heart pounding, cursor hovering over the launch icon, and then I clicked it. Because I wasn't just the neighbor anymore. I was the anomaly they couldn't control, and anomalies have a tendency to trigger failures. The moment I executed the override script, the air in the archive room felt different, too still, too sharp. The screen glitched once, then flicked into diagnostic mode. Green code poured down like a waterfall, parsing digital handshakes, user credential forks, internal reroutes, things only someone who'd lived in back-end systems would recognize. Chain of custody node breach, evidence locker number 4, user inject, admin OS UID 77 timestamp, offset, 13.7 hours, physical entry, no match override, authorized, level 3, internal, Q internal. There it was, a level 3? Internal override had rewritten the digital entry log, stamping my dormant municipal credentials over a fabricated access point. It was never me. The access log was built before the breach. I wasn't a suspect. I was the camouflage. The tool Elise gave me peeled back each layer like an autopsy. Line by line, I watched a ghost move through systems I was supposed to have no connection to. I saw my name injected into review queues, my address flagged in back-channel threads, my personal contacts pinged with silent metadata scans. And then, I saw something worse, a live ping from my apartment IP. My laptop had been reactivated remotely. Someone was watching from inside the system I thought I'd escaped. Worse, my photo archive had been copied, including the van photo. My proof was compromised. The screen began flashing red. Intrusion detected. Trace initiated. The air shifted again. Only this time, it wasn't digital. It was the door behind me. Footsteps, slow, calculated, rubber soles on vinyl tile. I yanked the drive, killed the terminal, and slid into the emergency staircase as the door creaked open behind me. My breath caught in my chest as I crouched between two floors, ears straining for voices, one male, one female. Is she still here? Terminal 6 lit up, overridden credentials. She launched it. Isolate the logs, wipe backup caches, flag her device. Pause. And prep the discredit pack. Discredit pack. I didn't know what that was, but I could guess. The kind of file that would link me to half a dozen redacted incidents. The kind that turned good people into urban myths. I didn't have time to hide. So I ran. Not recklessly. Not loudly. I took the freight corridor, past janitorial carts and water-stained ceiling panels, ducked into a linen supply closet, and called the one person I thought might still believe me. A former coworker, Dev, still working in municipal server security. He owed me a favor. Dev, I whispered, breath ragged. Someone's rewriting history, and I'm the story. I need to upload something, fast. You're on speaker, he muttered. What the hell is this? Entry time 1412. It's fake. I have the override chain. I need you to mirror it. Off-site, non-gov server, air-gapped. Long pause. Then, come to the waterworks station, East Gate, 20 minutes. After that, I'm out. The line went dead. I held the USB tight. That drive now held proof that could unravel at least 6 cases, including mine. Proof of digital framing, planted drugs, fake neighbor interference complaints, even a cross-reference between prosecutor involvement and evidence logs manipulated from internal security protocols. I left through the maintenance alley, ducked past a patrol van, and slid into the shadows of a crumbling overpass. I was no longer trying to survive this. I was going to expose it. Because if Elise was right, if even half the people in her dormant incident list were real, then there were dozens of us, buried under digital lies, criminalized by silence. I wouldn't be the quiet neighbor anymore. The east gate of the old waterworks plant groaned open like a throat clearing secrets. Moss climbed the brick walls. The smell of rust and river silt clung to the air like regret. I pressed my palm against the steel door twice, our old signal back when Dev and I worked on encrypted backlogs during the municipal breach. It opened with a low scrape. Dev hadn't changed much. Thick glasses, paranoid energy. Hoodie zipped to the chin even indoors. But his eyes darted faster now, like they expected something to crash through the window at any moment. You're early, he said, or they're already behind you. Maybe both. He didn't ask questions, just led me down a hallway, lit by amber safety lights, to a server rack humming like an anxious heartbeat. This machine's off-grid, no wireless modules, power runs through a surge-broken loop. You've got 15 minutes max before they triangulate the spike. I handed him the USB. He slid it in, eyes scanning the file names as if each one might bite him. Then he stopped. You weren't kidding. This is the real stuff. Internal timestamps, credential reassignments, even full logs of override scripting. He clicked open a file labeled Mendez Chain Loop Final.mp4. Charles Mendez, the man they erased. It was grainy surveillance footage from 2 years ago. Him, in a precinct server room, typing frantically. Then, another man enters, unidentifiable, gloved. Within 2 minutes, Charles is gone. Just gone. The file ended in a screen glitch. "You know what this is?" Dev whispered. "A memory hole," I said. "Live deletion, like he never existed." Dev turned to me. "If you post this, they'll come down hard. This isn't just your case. These files implicate 4 divisions, the prosecutor's office, 2 precincts, internal." I nodded. "Good. Then it's not just my voice anymore." We began uploading to 3 separate nodes. 1 private international forum for digital whistleblowers, 1 legal watchdog group Elise had vetted, and 1 encrypted broadcast drop, a timed release vault that would go public in 48 hours unless manually deactivated. Halfway through the upload, Dev's screen flickered. "Someone's pinging the external coils. They've found the power loop." "How long?" 10 minutes max." We waited in silence, the drive humming like a live wire, until the final file bar hit 100%. "Done," Dev said. "They'll have to pull half the city offline to stop what you just released." And then, bang! The front gate exploded inward, shouts, boots, flashlights. "On the ground, now!" Dev yanked me toward a drainage tunnel exit he'd carved years ago. We crawled through mud and rats, breath held like glass, until we emerged 3 blocks away, shivering and soaked. We didn't go back. We split, Dev west, me east. But before we parted, he slipped something into my hand. It was a printout of an access key, coded with a location, Storage Unit 512C. A dead drop Elise had built for Charles before he vanished. "If the upload fails," Dev said. "It won't," I answered, but I knew I had to check that unit anyway, because if there was anything left behind, physical, undeniable, irrefutable, it would be there, and if internal wanted to wipe me next, they'd have to go through everything Charles buried first. Storage Unit 512C sat like a forgotten limb in the far corner of a derelict complex, paint peeling, overhead lights buzzing like angry flies, the kind of place where secrets go to die in dust and silence. I stood in front of the roll-up door, keycard in one hand, flashlight in the other, every nerve in my body singing with adrenaline. The keypad beeped. Access granted. The door creaked up halfway before sticking. I ducked under. Inside, darkness, then shapes, boxes, old monitors, a folding chair, a desk with 3 disconnected hard drives, and a binder wrapped in plastic and duct tape. No cameras, no windows, 1 exit. I forced myself to breathe. The binder came first. I slit the tape and opened it. Inside were handwritten logs, color-coded tabs, printouts of chat transcripts, and something labeled Mendez Incident Dossier, unredacted. It was a bomb. Names of officers involved in narcotics drops, badge numbers tied to planted drugs, screenshots of access log manipulations, matching the exact method used to frame me. A whistleblower list marked, flagged as discredit targets. My name was 3rd from the bottom. Next to it, neighbor frame-up, no criminal record, low media risk, easy to isolate. I sat back in the chair, binder open on my lap, hands shaking not with fear, but rage. I wasn't alone. There were 15 others on that list, all silenced through internal security procedures, all discarded as anomalies, then quietly buried under false logs, broken timelines, and invisible authority. I photographed everything. Then I turned to the hard drives. 1 was dead. The 2nd wouldn't boot. The 3rd clicked once, twice, then lit up. Inside was a single folder. Automata Archive. It contained compressed evidence files, audio, video, metadata logs, password-protected PDFs with file names like evidence lock 4 sequence loop.move, prosecutor tau overlay, directive 09 txt, chain, auth, breach, classified, admin77.png, and 1 final file, testimony, Charles Mendez, final, MP4. I opened it. He looked tired, hollow-cheeked, sitting in what looked like this very unit. If you're seeing this, then the loop wasn't closed. If you're seeing this, they failed to erase all of me. I was an analyst. I trusted the logs, the system. I thought truth had a timestamp, but I was wrong. They can move time, reshape it, pin guilt where they need it. I watched good people vanish because they noticed something too small to ignore. If you're watching this, you are one of those people. And if you are, you can either disappear like me or bring the loop into the light. The video ended with coordinates, off-grid storage, another possible dead drop. But I already had more than enough, more than they could bury, because in my hands was something that no script could corrupt. The truth, in black ink, flesh and blood, time-stamped by the cowardice of those who thought I wouldn't fight back. I backed up the drives, sent encrypted copies to Elise and Dev, then posted the unredacted dossier to 3 secure drops. One was set to leak to independent media in 12 hours, one to international oversight, one to the cloud. Just as I locked the unit behind me, a voice came from the hallway. "You weren't supposed to get this far, Miss Evans." I turned, 2 figures, no badges, no uniforms, but one of them held a device, an access log manipulator, portable, live. I smiled, because I wasn't there to run. I was there to record, and I had already pressed stream. I didn't flinch, not because I wasn't afraid, but because fear wasn't useful anymore. The second I saw the red LED blink on my pocket cam, I knew everything that happened next would be live-streamed, encrypted, and saved across multiple nodes. The man on the left stepped forward, slow and deliberate, like he had all the time in the world. "You should have stayed quiet," he said. "And you should have learned," I replied. "Nothing stays buried forever, especially not manipulated evidence logs." His jaw clenched, just a flicker. The woman behind him raised what looked like a remote, the kind used to trigger overwrites or signal jammers. My heart thudded. But then, a ringtone, soft, insistent, coming from the woman's coat. She glanced down. Her face paled. "It's internal," she whispered to her partner. He snatched the device from her and turned to me. "What did you do?" "Check your upstream," I said. Because in the last 5 minutes, everything had gone live. The Mendez video, the unredacted binder scans, the JMN V3 script trails, the footage of their portable access log manipulator, broadcast in real time. Dozens of anonymous accounts were already mirroring it. Reddit, watchdog forums, blockchain drops. One major account reposted with the headline, "Internal framing civilian through digital evidence fabrication. Live streaming now." The man's composure cracked. "You don't understand what you've started. This isn't about you." I took a step forward, the fear melting into fury. "I know exactly what this is. You didn't just try to silence me. You rewrote people's lives. You turned truth into a weapon and erased the ones who noticed." Sirens echoed in the distance, not police sirens. Media vans, whistleblower task force units. Dev's off-grid leak had reached an international consortium for evidence integrity oversight, a watchdog group with teeth and jurisdiction. Their alerts had tripped red flags all the way to the senior prosecutor's office. And that's when the woman's earpiece crackled. "Stand down. Protocol breached. Full audit incoming. Abort trace." She looked at me, really looked, and I saw something new in her eyes. Panic. They turned and left. Fast. No more posturing. No more quiet threats. Just boots on concrete, backs retreating into the dark as the system they built began to eat itself. I stood alone in the corridor, breath shallow. And then my phone vibrated. Unknown sender. Message. "You're not the only one who kept a backup. Nice move." See, see, Charles? I opened the message. It linked to a secure video call window. I hesitated, then tapped. The screen flickered, and there he was, alive, tired, still in hiding. "Lara," he said, voice barely a whisper. "You did it. You found the loop." My throat tightened. "I'm not done yet," I said. He smiled. "No, but now you're not doing it alone." That night, over 2 million people saw my face. Not a mugshot, not a redacted witness line. Me, telling the truth. I gave them names, timelines, screenshots, and the voice of a man they thought they'd erased. The dominoes started falling. 1 precinct, then 2. Investigations reopened, testimonies retaken, victims' names cleared. But most important, the narrative was no longer theirs to control. The days that followed were chaos wrapped in suits, headlines, and half-baked apologies. Official statements flooded every channel. Anomalies in the evidence management system. Isolated misuse of internal protocols. A review board has been appointed. They stopped just short of calling it what it really was, a sanctioned cover-up. But we weren't waiting for their language anymore, because the evidence wasn't in their hands. It was in ours. Elise went public 2 days later, her voice disguised, her face blurred, but her message sharp. "You've been told trust lives in logs, that truth lives in timestamps, but those things can lie." And they did. If it weren't for Lara Evans, you'd still believe the story they wrote for her. Dev, now under protective watch, had turned the discredit protocol scripts into an open-source tool, one that could flag suspicious access loops in municipal records. Within 48 hours, over 300 cases were reopened across multiple states. And then came the biggest shock. A senior prosecutor resigned live on camera, not because he was guilty, but because he refused to be silent. He confirmed that the internal security team had bypassed judicial review for at least 6 months, assigning neutral case files for digital manipulation whenever the target was low profile, easily discredited, or marked as a harmless neighbor. A category I'd apparently fit perfectly. Until I didn't. The message was clear. They never expected us to fight back. Because people like me aren't supposed to cause noise. We're too ordinary, too polite, too careful. We pay rent on time and recycle and keep our heads down. But they forgot something. The system only works if no one looks too closely. And once you do, you can't unsee it. I testified remotely against 3 officers, 2 digital analysts, and the division head who signed off on the Neighbor Frame-Up initiative. Their faces were blank as I read my statement. But I saw the flickers, regret, fear, calculation. Didn't matter. They weren't the audience. The audience was everyone who'd ever asked. Why would they lie about something so small? Now they had the answer. Charles disappeared again, but this time on his terms. Before he left, he messaged me one last time. "We don't fix the system by trusting it. We fix it by making it afraid of being caught." And me? I went home. I bought a new lock, repainted my mailbox, changed nothing and everything. I still check the peephole before I open the door. I still keep my backup drives air-gapped. But now, I leave my curtains open. Let them see me. Let them know I'm not scared anymore. Because once the story belongs to you, they can't rewrite it. I didn't expect the final chapter to be quiet. But it was. No headlines, no urgent knocks, no more blinking cursors threatening to rewrite me out of my own life. Just the soft click of my own keyboard, the hum of a working heater, and the unremarkable morning sun spilling over the windowsill like forgiveness. But quiet doesn't mean nothing changed. The internal division? Disbanded. Replaced by something with a new name. But we weren't stupid. We knew the difference wasn't structural. It was reputational. The leaks had made sure of that. The phrase digital chain breach now carried legal weight. Access logs weren't unquestioned anymore. And the term neighbor interference became a public scandal. They tried to say it was the fault of a few rogue agents. They tried to paint it as a glitch. But the truth had already been spoken by people like me, Elise, Dev, and others who never expected to be heroes, just refused to stay footnotes. 15 names on a list became faces, stories, lawsuits, some cleared, some still in process, but none forgotten now, not ever again. Elise sent me a letter, not an email, not a file drop, a real letter in ink. It read, "You gave them back their voice. That's not just justice. That's resistance. Stay loud. E." I kept it inside the Mendez binder, now locked in a fireproof safe in my closet, next to the now dead USB drive that once held the key to everything. People still ask me why I didn't disappear after it all, why I didn't run, change my name, bury the past. And I tell them the truth, because they already tried to erase me once, and I won. A year later, I got a letter from the city. It wasn't an apology, not really. Bureaucracies don't apologize, but it contained an offer, an advisory role in a newly formed Digital Integrity Council. I laughed out loud when I read it. The same system that tried to destroy me now wanted me to teach them how to stop it from happening again. I said yes, not because I forgive them, but because every system needs someone they're afraid of. And if I can be that person for the next nobody neighbor who gets too close to the truth, then it was worth it. All of it. Because the next time someone says, they won't believe you, you're just the neighbor, I want the answer to be, that neighbor, we believe her now.